RYUC After Action Report Essential, Holding Our Creativity Sacred. This recording is part of a series of recordings reporting on an exploration into our creativity, collectively entitled Releasing Your Unlimited Creativity After Action Report, abbreviated RYUC-AAR. This particular recording addresses the creativity essential on the topic of the creativity perspective, where one holds their creativity sacred, and the need to hold our creativity sacred and how to go about doing so. Background on the creativity essentials and the RYUC material. The creativity essentials are concepts, principles, ideas, or whatever one may wish to call them, related to the source out of which our creativity arises. The journey of exploration into our creativity revealed the essentials needed to be addressed and understood in some way by an individual if one desired to move as deep as possible into their own creativity, creative ability, and creative power in this incarnation. Otherwise, one would be placing self-imposed limits on their creativity. Essentials are not building blocks or fundamental items used to create something. Rather, the essentials are about the stuff out of which the building blocks and foundational items arise. It is suggested you ponder, contemplate, do your own experiments with the creativity essentials such that you know their truth for yourself. Here I wish to bring to your attention we each have a very unique perspective of creation. What I say and write about on the topic of creativity with its relationship with the creative essence of creation are my comments based on my observation and experience from the journey of exploration into our creativity. If what I say resonates with you, use it. Otherwise, it's recommended you do your own contemplation, experiments, and exploration into the variety of topics discussed here to see which true for yourself. The creativity perspective. The most important concept utilized in the journey of exploration of our creativity and key to the journey was the creativity perspective. The idea of the creativity perspective is where you hold our creativity sacred. The creativity perspective is a perspective where the creativity, our creativity, and the creativity of others is held sacred. What this really means is it allows us to look at options. To create is to bring something into existence, and we need to be able to go to our creative imagination and look at options for different ways of trying to bring something into existence. In any situation we face, we will need to remind ourselves there is another way to look at any situation, even if we go off into our creative imagination and imagine something that we feel is 100% totally imaginary and fanciful. What it does, though, is it allows our mind to not be locked into a very tight perspective about creation. It leaves our mind open to other possibilities that we may not initially perceive in that moment, but by being open to the possibilities, we will see other possibilities in the future. There is an old saying that to believe something is impossible, we'll never look to see what is possible. But if we take the perspective that nothing's impossible, and even though what we are looking at is impossible, by looking at it as possible, we don't know what we will see and perceive that actually allows us to move towards making the impossible possible. How we perceive and look at things is very important. This is why it's very important to hold a perspective where we allow options to remain open. The creativity perspective is about allowing for options in all cases. The creativity perspective is to hold options open. Our creativity is ultimately our most valuable asset. This can be seen from two perspectives. One perspective is our creativity can get us out of any situation in which we find ourselves. The other perspective is our creativity is the doorway and our access point to the creative essence of creation. That is, our creativity has the possibility to allow our awareness to swim in and be one with the creative essence of creation and that which gave rise to creation. Both these perspectives are possible when we hold our creativity sacred. So what does it mean to say our creativity and the creativity of others is sacred? It is simply to look at where and why one is not allowed to explore and pursue possible options. It is to look at where one is not free to explore. Simply said, it's about answering the question, why this way versus any other way for any given situation. The reason why one may not be allowed to explore options in any given situation can be varied, but the creativity perspective boils down to exploring that why and pulling the string to get to the root cause of why one is thinking a particular way is the only way that exists, and one is unable to explore any other particular option. Holding our creativity sacred can be seen in 4 ways. One way our creativity is held sacred is to give it the freedom to explore options. There are no limits and no barriers on our exploration. It is much like the spontaneous and innocent childlike play of a very young child to discover itself and the world in which it inhabits before the mind steps in with its judgments. The second way our creativity is held sacred is to remove the obstacles or reasons which prevent an exploration in a given direction, to provide a way to work around the obstacle or reason preventing the exploration. Often, working around the obstacle is about addressing perceived hazards in the direction one thinks or feels they must explore for whatever reason they have. The third way our creativity is held sacred is to not curtail or block the freedom of exploration and not place barriers, obstacles, or even thoughts that inhibit our creativity. The fourth way is to look to empower and expand the creativity available to oneself or another. Here it's not about giving freedom, removing obstacles, or curtailing the freedom to explore. Here it is about providing the understanding or circumstances which in some way expand the individual's creativity. Analogously, it is like an individual is confined to 2 dimensions. They have the freedom to explore the whole 2 dimensions and or face the obstacles they encounter in 2 dimensions. However, if you point out to them there is a 3rd dimension, all of a sudden their creative options infinitely expand in a completely new direction, no longer bound by 2 dimensions. The creativity perspective is a perspective from which to view life that empowers our creative ability. To hold creativity sacred, our own creativity or that of another, it's to protect and address our true creative needs. All else is seen malleable and can be changed to protect and address those needs. The creativity perspective looks to see what serves or doesn't serve our creativity and look to create a life worth living. With the creativity perspective, we look for a way to view creation where our creativity is unbounded and is free to unfold true to itself. Of course, each of us will have to spend some time exploring what our creativity looks like and how it desires to express itself, for its expression will be different for each individual, for we each are a unique, infinitely creative being. The recommendation for your own life is to embrace an optimum creativity perspective for yourself in a way that works for you. Hazards and dangers of the creativity perspective. Now, one may say, what about the hazards or dangers that may exist? The creativity perspective is not about denying the existence of hazards and dangers. Rather, it is about addressing hazards and dangers as understood and implement protective and safety measures as understood. Granted, in a truly new, original, creative endeavor where mind has not been before, there may be unseen hazard, so it is prudent to proceed slowly in an aware and awake manner. Every advancement made by humanity has had to face the possibility of unknown hazards. One thing relative to potential hazards is the need to have the freedom to explore all possible options within one's creative imagination and understand why anyone can or cannot be possible, and understand why any one option can or cannot be possible. There are many rules and conditions placed on us as a human being that biases the way we think. The challenge is to get past the limitations of our thinking to see what is possible, then eliminate possibilities only after they are truly explored. This means not judging any possibility until it is explored. Here again is about holding our creativity sacred, and that means the freedom to explore options. Many options may be rejected for whatever the reason may be, but the key here is being able to explore the option. Often, people are afraid to explore options for fear of being wrong or judged unsuccessful. However, in a truly original creative endeavor, there are no mistakes. There are only learning experience as to what does and does not work under a given set of conditions. Only in the exploration do we come to understand what is and is not possible. If we limit our exploration before we try, we will never know what is possible. Although one can live their life from the creativity perspective, Most will find it beneficial to adopt the creativity perspective to assist them in solving the problem they face. Then, when they find an acceptable solution, they can return to their normal perspective and live their life from that normal perspective. However, if you wish to go beyond the world in which you find yourself, you may want to consider what living with a creativity perspective all the time will provide you. Now, it needs to be noted that we said our human mind is unable to fully understand creation, and any perspective we take can be incomplete, inaccurate, or even in error. Using the creativity perspective gives us the option to explore what we believe and look to see if there is a more correct way or a more expansive way, or any perspective or belief we hold.